What is going on, everyone? Happy Sunday. It is a much better vibe, I would say, in Columbia, South Carolina, as South Carolina picks up a 50-7 win over the Akron Zips last night at Williams-Brice Stadium. The feeling is definitely much different than this time last week when we were on here talking about the Gamecocks' 36-33 loss to LSU. But this team is going into the bye week and wrapping up September 3-1 on the year and in a pretty good spot right now with a really tough stretch of games coming up in October. But for right now, this team is in a pretty good position, and all things considered, it is pretty good right now for this football team. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you don't know much about me, my name is Jack Veltri. I am the football beat writer, baseball beat writer, and men's basketball beat writer for GamecockCentral.com, covering sports year round for GC. And so thank you guys for tuning into tonight's show, and wanted to go ahead and give a quick shout to our first sponsor of the night, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. If you don't, so with Clint, if you're in the need for having help with your mortgage or buying a home or anything like that, Clint is your guy to call. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2003, and he has helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth. So Clint is definitely the guy to call. He's been a lifelong Gamecock fan and a very long-time supporter of GamecockCentral.com, long before I joined the picture here at GC. So if you're looking to have help with your mortgage or home or anything like that, Clint's your got to call 803-422-6797. Again, the number to call Clint is right above me here, 803-422-6797. Or you can go to ClintHammond.com, or the NMLS number on screen is 71597. And so that is all there for you guys to take a look at right up there. So first comment comes from R. Zinke. Apologies if I butcher that, but it says, "Hey, Jack, good morning. What time did you get to sleep?" Yeah. It was a late night last night. So quick rundown. Game probably got over. I can't even remember what time the game got over. It felt late. Sat through about an hour press conferences, and then did a few videos, one for 107.5 The Game and then one for Gamecock Central. And by the time I got up and out of there, it was probably like closer to 1 a.m. I got home and probably about 1:30, and my poor girlfriend, who's in Columbia this weekend, had to deal with me coming in super late and heating up some leftover food and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a late night. Didn't go to bed till probably about 2, and then woke up about 9 and got right to work. And it's been a chill day, but obviously tonight things ramp up a little bit with the teleconference for Shane Beamer and hopping on here with you guys and talking some of last night's wins. So, yeah, that's where we're going to start. What an impressive game for this team last night, right? I mean, look, so much of the talk throughout this past week was obviously about the LSU game and the way South Carolina lost that game for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, everyone is pissed off about the penalties and how South Carolina essentially just got screwed over in that game. But there's also a lot of discussion about just what went wrong for this team in that game. They missed the field goal to tie the game at the end, which obviously is not the reason why South Carolina lost that game. But there was just so many things in that game that did go wrong for South Carolina. But yet they lived to fight another day. And the message throughout the week was, don't let this loss linger. Don't let it linger. Move on. Do what you got to do to move on. And that's really what they did last night. I mean, they took care of business. It was close at one point, it felt like, for a little bit there, but Carolina pulled away in the second half. I think they outscored the Zips maybe 28-0 in the second half, and that fourth quarter was really, really nice for the Gamecocks. I mean, they had 21 points in the fourth quarter. Shane Beamer, I think, said it was the best fourth quarter performance. That's how you want to close out games, essentially, is what he was getting at during tonight's teleconference. So, very good performance for the Gamecocks last night. And it all starts with the man of the hour, Robbie Ashford. And Steven comments, so AJ McCarron called it. You can't game plan for Robbie Ashford, and he is a bad quarterback. What a jerk AJ is. Yeah, and when I saw that story or interview, whatever it was, I think it was a story yesterday online about what AJ McCarron, if you don't know who he is, former Alabama quarterback, finished runner-up in the Heisman Trophy voting to Jameis Winston, I believe, in 2013. Yeah, that sounds about right. And he's been in the NFL for a bit, or was in the NFL. And I think recently he was in the XFL out with St. Louis or something. But anyway, that's besides the point. So AJ knows a thing or two about playing quarterback and playing at a very high level. And he obviously had some comments about Robbie Ashford. And, it kind of surprised me because it's like, I've always been a big AJ McCarron fan. I've always loved watching him growing up and stuff, and really thought he was going to pan out well in the NFL. He got his opportunity, but I feel like he got screwed over because of the the Vontaze Burfict hit on Antonio Brown in that AFC wildcard playoff game or whatever it was that basically cost the Bengals that game. It was like almost a dozen years ago. But anyway, back to the point here. It kind of surprised me, the fact that AJ said stuff like that. Look, obviously him and a lot of people who doubted Robbie Ashford were completely wrong. And you got to give credit where it's due. I think a lot of people had doubts about the way Robbie was going to play coming into this game. You look at the sample size from last week against LSU. He really didn't play fantastic at all, offensively speaking. I mean, it took a while for him to even incorporate passing into his game plan, and he had a lot of pass calls that were called for him, but he took them as runs and tried to make a lot of what he did in that game last week happen with his feet, which isn't a bad thing, but it really made the job easier for LSU's defense to kind of take the run game out of it. And it's another part of the reason why LSU won that game last week. But this live stream is not about LSU. It's about last night with that win against Akron. And Steven has another comment. I thought Robbie, even in his drop back passes last night, looked really good. Yeah, man, he looked absolutely fantastic in my opinion. If you missed it last night, Robbie got the start in placement of Lenore Sellers, who obviously had the ankle sprain injury last week. And, obviously throughout the week, Shane Beamer had been saying that Lenore has been saying he's feeling good. He's feeling good, ready to roll, all this and that. But at the same time, it's like you're facing Akron, and you should be able to win without Sellers on the field starting at quarterback. And I think the staff thought that what's the sense in risking any further injury? What is the sense in playing Lenore outside of obviously getting more reps? I've seen a lot of people saying that throughout the week. But obviously, I think health is a little more important, and there are going to be bigger battles to be won as the season rolls on. I mean, 2 weeks here, you get Ole Miss at home, and it looks like Lenore should be good to go for that game. Quick little injury report before we get back into Robbie. Shane Beamer on his teleconference tonight said everyone should be good to go in terms of the injury standpoint. Rocket Sanders is the only one that's like, so if he brought up a hypothetical, if there was a game this week, Rocket would probably be the most questionable. And last night he got hurt very early in that game, limped off the field, was in the medical tent for a little bit, and then was hanging out on the bench for really pretty much majority of that first half. And then walking to the locker room at halftime, he had a boot on his left foot and came back out in street clothes and obviously did not play for majority of that game last night. And obviously everyone is probably, on pins and needles, holding their breath, hoping that Rocket's going to be okay. And it seems that they've dodged a bullet. It seems like he's going to be good for the Ole Miss game when that time comes. And that should be the case for everyone else. Sellers, Jared Brown, Monkel Goodwin was another name that was mentioned yesterday that I don't think was mentioned tonight. But again, the bye week comes at a really good time for this team as they're going to be able to get healthy this week and get ready to go for what should be a really big game here in 2 weeks. And getting back to Robbie, though, he played outstanding last night. 15 of 21 passing, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. He completed 71% of his passes. And it wasn't just a little bit of, sit in the pocket and just dump off a pass to a tight end and play the short game. I mean, he was airing it out last night. I think he had maybe 5 throws that he connected on that were, I think, 30 yards or more last night. That is impressive. I mean, he hit up Gage Larvadain for really long gains last night, and Mazio Bennett had a great performance as well. Gage had 79 yards on 2 catches, averaging 39.5 yards per catch. Nick Harbor got a few catches. Dale Von Campbell had a 27-yard catch. I mean, there were a lot of good plays last night in this offense, and it really does start with Ashford, who, in my opinion, really looked the part. I mean, honestly, if I didn't know anything about South Carolina, like if last night was my first time watching this team last night, I would have thought that Robbie Ashford is the starting quarterback for this team. Like, he looked that good to where it's like, obviously Lenoris is going to be the guy. I mean, there's no questioning that. But I think it's a situation where, God forbid, Lenoris goes down again or just whoever. I think you really feel good about what Robbie can do. And let's also not sleep on Davis Bevel. He had a nice game last night too, coming in the fourth quarter. And he went 4 of 6 passing, 33 yards, a touchdown. Played really good as well. And Shane was really happy with the way he was decisive in the pocket and making great decisions. And that is really what you want out of, especially your third string quarterback. That just says a lot about the depth they have at that position. And I think they're in a great spot there. So Robbie played really good, but it's not just what he did in the passing game that was really noteworthy. Honestly, him in the running game, he was electric as well. I mean, 16 attempts rushing on the ground, 133 yards, had the 1 touchdown. I think that went for 36 yards. I mean, he was every bit of what you wanted out of someone filling in for Sellers last night. It was really, really good to watch South Carolina really not skip a beat offensively. And in fact, I think they took steps forward offensively. I mean, there's just so much good that you can take away from this offense and what they did. And it was a really good night for Robbie. And you have to be happy for him. I mean, that's a guy that obviously has been through a lot of stops in college. Obviously started out at Oregon. Then he went to Auburn and made a bunch of starts there, but it just never really worked out. And now he's at South Carolina, where he honestly said last night he feels like this is one of the best teams he's ever been a part of, and he's really appreciated the support he's gotten. And William Jones says Harbor can catch the ball too. Yeah, Nick Harbor is slowly coming along. I think maybe it's too early to even say that, but last night Nick had 2 catches for 17 yards. He had a longer catch that got negated by, I think, a holding penalty. It would have probably bumped his total up to, I think, well over 50 yards receiving. But alas, a holding call happened, and it was for naught. So it is what it is. But Nick, I think, is definitely starting to play a little better. It may not look like it on the stat sheet, but he did a fine job last night. He got a jet sweep last night. I know everyone's been wanting to see him do that and stuff, just like EA College Football 25. But I think he maybe went for like a yard or something. So that still has a little bit of work in progress to come. But overall, again, the receivers last night looked very good. And you got to be happy with how they played with the absence of Jared Brown, who did not play last night. EXO says, Robbie said multiple times how much more he learned at SC than at his other stops. Not a compliment for his old schools, but I think explains his performance. He's getting development here. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit it right on the head right there. EXO. I think there was so much, obviously Ashford was in a weird spot at Auburn, where I think Brian Harsin was the head coach there for the Tigers a few years ago. And his time at Auburn just did not go well. Robbie's talked about before where, everyone was kind of just for themselves in that quarterback room at Auburn, and it just wasn't it was kind of toxic. And now he's at South Carolina. Everyone really seems to be on the same page and stuff and together. And I know that sounds cliche and wishy-washy, whatever you want to call it, but hey, they're 3-1 right now, and it's working for them. So whatever they're doing right now is going to plan. And Robbie filling in last night and really looking the part, and potentially this might be a hot take, but I think statistically speaking, he played a lot better than Lenoris had. When you chalk it up, comparison, one of his 3 games or anything. But that's not to say Lenoris hasn't had his strong moments, because obviously when he returns and gets healthy, he's going to be right back there at quarterback. But it is a good problem to have when you have another guy that could easily go in there with starting experience. And make a big impact. And yeah, I know people are going to say, "Oh, it's Akron. It's just a lower level, horrible FBS team," and you'd probably be right. But again, it's not by accident that they're putting up 50 points of offense. I mean, they played very well last night, and they looked dynamic. I mean, 200. What I said before, 276 yards passing in total, 273 yards on the ground with 4 touchdowns, and that's all without Rocket Sanders in the running game. I mean, Oscar Attaway came in and played very well. 14 carries, 42 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jawarn Howell had a nice night, finally getting some action. 5 carries, 33 yards, 1 touchdown. Had a long of 23 yards. Juju McDowell had a really good night. Let's not sleep on him. He had a receiving touchdown and had 29 yards on the ground. And, of course, Matthew Fuller, who Shane Beamer did say the 2 players at running back he wants to get more involved, especially after last night, are Fuller and Howell. They're younger guys in that room, but they really impressed the coaching staff last night. And I think this is what we kind of expected out of the running back room, because obviously, Rocket's going to get majority of the touches, but find a way to get some other guys in there and get them playing time, and it will work out. And that's what we saw last night after Rocket went down. Now I'm interested to see moving forward, whenever Rocket returns, let's say it is against Ole Miss, how do you kind of dictate how many carries the other guys may get, right? Does it go right back to Attaway maybe getting 1 or 2 touches and that's it, or Juju McDowell getting involved sparingly and not even really seeing much of these other guys? I do wonder, how does it look from that standpoint? And I know a lot of people also, I'll bring this up because it gets asked, I get asked about it all the time, it seems like. DJ Braswell, a lot of people have been asking, what's up with him? Where's he been at? All this and that. He did dress last night, didn't get in the game. He was on the dress roster. And Beamer, during his teleconference tonight, did say that one of the scout team offensive players of the week was Mac Walters, but also DJ Braswell. So believe it or not, he's still around, still playing. He might not be seeing much action on the field during games, but he's certainly helping this team during practice right now. And it's good. It's good to see that he is, still out there and stuff. And SC Scout guy says, I'm guessing DJ Braswell transfers. Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's too early to say. But again, he's a young guy. So, I mean, some of these other guys might just be getting more reps over him. That might simply be what it comes down to. But yeah, and then William Jones says Fuller beast. Yeah, I agree. I was excited to see him in there last night. He has got a bright future with Carolina. It's going to be really exciting to see what he does. And then R. Zinke says, when was the last time we put up 50 points? It hasn't happened in the Shane Beamer era. The closest I remember it being, and this is just off the top of my head, it was, I think the first game of the Beamer era was a 46-0 win over Eastern Illinois. The last time they put up 50 points, I mean, that's something that if you guys want to go ahead and look it up and mention in the comments, please do. But it's been a while. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I know Clemson in like 2017 or 18, they played really well. I think they had maybe 500 yards of offense or something. That's just off the top of my head, but they didn't have. Oh yeah, 6. Yeah, so silly. What am I thinking? I'm honestly an idiot. What am I thinking? 63 points against Tennessee. Thank you so much. How could I forget about that insane night? That game was insane. Yeah, thank you guys for pointing that out. And way off topic, Thomas says, but can we acknowledge UNC let JMU run 70 on them? Yeah, we'll get right back into the Carolina conversation, or South Carolina conversation here in a few. But holy cow, man. Let me just break down some of the other games that really stood out to me. Clemson. They're looking pretty good right now offensively and just in general. I mean, they walloped NC State, who I think is a very fraudulent team. I mean, they look horrible, NC State. I mean, Western Carolina almost beat them. And that really says a lot about where things are at right now for the Wolfpack. Well, I thought we're going to be pretty good again this year. And then they get, waxed by Tennessee, and they get waxed in Death Valley yesterday. So, but yeah, JMU, man, that's crazy. With a new coach and everything, and the fact that UNC scored 50 in that game is wild to me. Just crazy. And the fact that it was a 70-50 game, that feels like a basketball score to me, but absolutely wild. And then I saw on Twitter that Mac Brown was allegedly like resigning and stuff. And then it came out that he wasn't. Then I don't know. The whole situation's crazy. But yeah. And then I got a comment here about Sheriff says, is that Spider-Man poster for sale? So yeah, right behind me here, I have so over the summer, not to get too far off topic here, but over the summer, I think it's like the 100th anniversary of Columbia Pictures or something. And so all the Spider-Man movies were shown in theaters every single week during the summer. And I went to go see Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, No Way Home, and Far From Home. I have a poster from Far From Home and then the two Raimi posters behind me. They're not for sale, unfortunately, but they did have them at Regal movie theaters when I went. But I mean, they're pretty sick, aren't they? Like I'm a big Spider-Man fan, one of my favorite superheroes. But not to get too far off topic again, $63. If you want to pay $60, these things are priceless to me. I love them, and I'm a huge Raimi Spider-Man trilogy fan. But anyway, poor Vandy. Yeah, really poor Vandy. I think they should have won that game yesterday, but alas, they didn't. Missouri, I think, is at some point I think Missouri is gonna fall at some point, and I don't know when it is. I know they got Bama on the schedule at some point. I think Carolina, maybe at the end of the year. I think South Carolina could beat them. I think that's one of the upsets that I thought about picking in my season predictions, but I'm like, Missouri's gonna be fine. They're gonna be good again this year. But honestly, they're kind of slacking a little bit right now. They got a lot of work to do. And funny how all this is happening after, I think it was on College Game Day last week. Eli Drinkowitz had that silly looking robo dog thing on the field. It looks so weird. I don't even know what it was. And then the last game I want to talk about real quick, Daniel says Baylor, Colorado. Holy smokes, man. That game was, I didn't really get to watch much of it at all, but I did see the final few plays of that game. Holy cow. Insane. That Colorado receiver dropping the Hail Mary right in the final few seconds there. You got to catch that ball. And then, of course, Shedeur Sanders just throws up another bomb to the end zone, and they catch it on the next play for a Hail Mary touchdown. And then in overtime, what was it? Travis Hunter made a really nice defensive play to stop Baylor. And, yeah, I mean, look, that's pretty cool for Colorado. I mean, I think I picked them to win in staff picks for that game, but I mean, look, Colorado's still got a long way to go. But hey, good for Dion, good for those kids. That's pretty cool. I don't know how many times I've seen that happen, where you get the redemption and you convert right after missing out. And then Sheriff says, Mom told me I can't have Spider-Man posters in the basement. But yeah, and let me just make that clear. This is not my basement. I'm not living at my mom's house. So I still would have, really sick Spider-Man posters up in my basement if that were the case. But fortunately, I got my own place and we're rolling. And yeah, I got a pretty sick room here. So for my office space. Let's see. What are the comments we got here before we kind of transition things over to the defense? Craig says, Davis Bevel throws a great ball. Very impressed with him. Yeah, no, right on the money, man. Beamer was also very impressed with him. Like I said before, very good decisions made last night. Very decisive. And in the limited time he played, I thought he really looked well. And obviously threw a touchdown last night. I think he is, again, going back to the point of South Carolina's got a good thing going in that quarterback room. I think you feel pretty good about any of the three guys in that room, Sellers, Ashford, Bevel. If you ever really need them to, if someone goes down, you got another guy that can go in there and play. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's Akron. South Carolina should be able to put up 50 points and throw for as many yards as they can. But, I mean, look, everyone looked good last night, and you can't knock them. I mean, it's an FBS opponent. It's Akron. I mean, they kept it pretty close against Ohio State for a time there. And yeah, I know you guys are going to say, oh, Jack, Ohio State won that game like 52-6 or whatever it was. Pretty sure it was a close game at one point. So obviously Akron. I mean, look, it's a great win for Carolina last night, and it's one step closer to bowl eligibility, which now the Gamecocks are 3 wins away from getting there. Craig also says, and Fuller runs really hard as long as Sellers is back. We have a chance with Ole Miss, even if Rocket is out. Yeah, I think let's pump the brakes a little bit for a second. I like what you're saying about Fuller. I think he's going to be really solid for this team, but I think Carolina still needs Rocket at full strength to beat Ole Miss. And I'm not saying they can't do it without him, but I do really think you have to have him in there to be able to feel really, really good about your chances. I think Carolina is honestly. We'll talk a little bit about Ole Miss and what I'm thinking early on at the end. We'll dive more into Ole Miss next week when we are back on here. But I really do think Carolina has a good chance of pulling off what would be a major top 10 upset win. And but you really need Rocket to help you get there. Sheriff asks another question: what game are you watching on the off week? Well, I'm going to go ahead and mention this because, and I'll explain more of it next week when I go. I am going to a college football game next week, and you may not like it. And look, I'm a graduate of Carolina. I went to USC. I understand the Carolina-Clemson rivalry and stuff. I'm going to the Clemson-Stanford game next week. And before you freak out and say, Jack, why are you going to Clemson? This and that. Well, to be fair, I have my brother goes to Clemson and my sister goes to Clemson. So I'm going to spend the weekend with them next week. I haven't been able to see them in a little bit. And so get some good quality family time with them. And going to go to the Clemson-Stanford game. And no, for y'all's information, I am not wearing orange. If you want to know something about me, I went to Carolina. Yeah, I'm objective in my reporting. I don't outwardly say I'm a Carolina fan or anything because I'm an unbiased reporter. But I will say there was one time, I think maybe last year when my sister was a freshman at Clemson. She had asked me if I wanted anything from the university store or whatever, where you can get Clemson t-shirts and stuff. And I'm like, nope. And even though they got me a shirt, for whatever reason, I wasn't going to wear it. I haven't really worn it at all. I don't think I've worn it at all once, maybe to bed, but that's the only time you'll see me wearing it. It's not even a Clemson shirt. It's literally got a tiger paw on the back or whatever, but that's besides the point. So I'm going to Clemson next week to watch Clemson Stanford, and I will probably be wearing. I did think about going and getting a Stanford shirt, to be honest, just because why not? But I'll probably just I'll be going incognito, getting the Connor Stallion scouting report. But I'll probably just end up wearing a red T-shirt or honestly just something neutral, or black or white or something, But no Clemson gear for this guy. And so SC Scout Guy says, Jack, where are you originally from? I'm originally from Wantagh, New York, lived on Long Island for 10 years, and then I moved to Fort Mill when I was 11, and that was back in 2011 because I'm 24 now. So, and then I've been in Columbia full-time since I got the job. I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary of becoming a full-time staff writer at GC. So that's in a few weeks here. So, yeah, I've been in Columbia full-time since January and went to school here. So, anyway, let's get back on topic here. What was another? I got another question here. Tommy Lucas says, didn't see much Dylan Stewart last night. Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about this defense, because I think that kind of gets not swept under the rug, but not nearly as talked as much as this offense has been. And I mean, they only forced one turnover last night. DQ Smith, who I know has gotten a lot of flack lately, so far this season, and even going back to last year for his play, had an interception last night late in the fourth quarter. He was one of Beamer's defensive players of the game. In fact, he was the first player mentioned for defensive player in the game. And he had the one pick. And then outside of that, I mean, look, the only complaint I have about the defense is late in that second quarter on the final, I think it was the final Akron drive, that led to the touchdown. And it was a 42-yard pass from Finley to one of his receivers. And Judge Coyer kind of got beat a little bit. He jumped at the last second to try to maybe knock the pass down or pick it off, whatever the case might be, right in front of the end zone. And he whiffed on it. And Akron got their only touchdown of the night. And that's just something where, it's going to happen, I guess. You never want to see a guy get beat in coverage in the secondary, but alas, that is what happened. And you learn from it, move on. And luckily, it was really the only mistake this defense made, in my opinion, last night, unless I'm like forgetting about something. I have not been able to go back and watch the full tape on this game yet, which I plan on doing either tonight, although I do want to watch Sunday Night Football, and then tomorrow I'll probably watch it because I still got to do grading with the Gamecocks. And I want to see what this team looked like for myself on second viewing because it's very tough in person. I'm focused on doing a million things, but I just want to sit down and rewatch this game. But Debo Williams, I thought, played very well last night. He had 4 tackles, half a sack, half a tackle for loss. Rondo Porter had a nice sack and tackle for loss coming in garbage time. And Kyle Kennard obviously continues to play very well with another 1.5 tackles for loss and half a sack, which he did combine for with Debo Williams for a sack. So very impressed with this defense last night. Anytime you can hold a team to, I believe it was 154 total yards, 37 on the ground, 117 through the air. That is very impressive. And yeah, I keep bringing this up. Yes, it's Akron. Like, okay, but still, it's a very good performance nonetheless for this team, and very good performance for the defense. Craig says, "Did you listen to Opie and Anthony? I'm sorry. I wait. What was? Sorry, I'm sorry if I'm missing something here or I'm not getting a reference, but no, I didn't. Is that like the broadcast or something? I'm sorry if I'm missing something here. But anyway, if you want to, Craig, if you want to kind of elaborate on that, kind of just explain what you're talking about, be happy to answer the best I can. Oh, it's a morning show in New York. No, unfortunately, I did not. Yeah, so sorry. And when like I said before, when I lived in New York, I moved here when I was, I think when I was like maybe 10 years old or something, right before I turned 11 back in 2011. So yeah, that's probably long before my time. I probably should listen. That's pretty cool. If they're still going, that'd be awesome to listen to. I love listening to a good radio show. Radio shows I listen to now are like Mad Dog, with Chris Russo, guys like that, Steve Torrey. But yeah, no, unfortunately, I never got a chance to. Probably mainly because I was too young. So, but yeah, so. Let's see. What other questions do we got here? Craig also says, O-line did not play great last night. That's troubling. Yeah, that is something Shane Beamer did talk about on the teleconference tonight. 16 sacks is way too many. And again, he keeps saying it, and I agree with him. It's not all on the offensive line. Everyone has a part in it. It's coaching. It's tight ends missing blocks. It's just defenses doing a really good job of getting to the quarterback. It's the quarterback not throwing the ball away or whatever the case might be. There's a lot of reasons why they have 16 sacks right now, but it's not all on the offensive line, as I've said many times before. However, the offensive line, it's not like the offensive line's perfect by any means. They have their own issues as well. But again, I keep bringing it up. When you're rushing for as many yards as Carolina is on the ground, I know a big part of it is running backs making elusive moves and doing a lot of it. They can do a lot of it on their own. But I don't think they get as many yards if the O-line isn't creating holes and blocking at least half decently. And I think they were able to do that last night and going back to last week against LSU. So, yeah, O-line's got to be a little bit better. The sacks need to get down. But again, it's not like it's all on the offensive line. And William Jones says we are going to miss Debo Williams next year. Yeah, he's been a really big part of this defense for the last few years. And look, he's put together a nice little season so far. I think it's a little slept on a little bit because there's so many different guys on defense making plays. Kyle Kennard, obviously, Dylan Stewart, who I haven't really even talked about yet. I mean, yeah, he really didn't make much of a big impact last night. I thought he was going to, but I think we get lost in the fact of we saw what he did in the first 2 games of the year, multiple sacks each game, just getting back in the backfield, seeing the insane highlight reels and stuff. I think everyone kind of got way too ahead of themselves with that. And it's not to say, Dylan's not still a great player, but it was going to be unreasonable, I think, to expect him to have those types of stats he had in those first 2 games every single time out because you're facing better, offensive lines, better, blockers each game. And LSU obviously is some of the best in the country, despite the fact that they definitely held a good bit and weren't called for it. And then Akron last night seemingly did a pretty good job containing him and taking him out of the game, making him a non-factor. So I think eventually Dylan's still a freshman. Let's not forget that. As he continues to grow and learn, he'll be fine. And I think he's going to really come along. I mean, he had 2 tackles last night, one of which was solo. So it wasn't like he did it's not like he didn't do anything last night. So again, he'll be fine. And I think in general, this defense, Carolina Titans says it straight up. Defense could have had a shutout if the DB didn't mistime the jump. Exactly. And I think it was a very solid performance for this defense last night. And Craig says Kennard will break the season's sack record. I think he's well on his way to doing so. I think he has been every bit of amazing for this defense. He's been phenomenal. And it really stinks that it's only like 1 year he's going to be here at Carolina. Like, he's probably going to be, I would imagine, a high draft pick, in the 2025 NFL draft next year. And he is going to be making a lot of money some way or some time, or in the future, I should say. But he's going to be really missed next year. And a lot of these guys are on this defense. But again, you have guys like Dylan Stewart that are going to continue to grow and, continue to work. So, and SC Scout Guy brings up a good point. Just his presence probably helped the rest of the line. They had to account for him. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they see it on the tape and they see the fact of what he has done, terrorizing the backfield against Old Dominion in Kentucky. And it's like, yeah, you gotta be able to account for him, like you said, SC Scout Guy. And that allows, I guess, other guys to come through. But it's like, again, I talked about, I think, first week of the year, you're going to have to pick your poison between Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart. It seems like a lot of guys or a lot of teams so far since then are leaning on trying to take Dylan Stewart out of it. But at the same time, if you have a weaker offensive line, you're not going to be able to stop Kyle Kennard. And he hasn't slowed down one bit over any part of this season. He's been phenomenal. And Carolina Titans says Kennard is the epitome of development. Guy was a 3-star. And yeah, a lot of his time and success came at Georgia Tech. But this year, I think he's really having that breakout year. And he's building off what he did last year at Georgia Tech with 6 sacks. And he's had a phenomenal year thus far. Still a lot of game to go. But yeah, so Sheriff says, what's your go-to tailgate brew? Quite honestly, man, I haven't been able to go tailgate for a football game in a long, like, probably since last year. I went to a few Marshall games last year when my brother was playing there, but and honestly, quite frankly, I'm not even that big of a drinker. I mean, yeah, I'll go out and have a good time and all that, but yeah, I really don't. I mean, I'll whatever's around, water, Gatorade, all that stuff. I'll have it. But yeah, as for the hard stuff, yeah, whatever's out there, I'm cool with. I don't have anything really specific. But yeah, kind of continuing to talk about the defense a little bit. Again, it was just a really good night for them. 7 points. I mean, you can't complain about what they did last night. It was a really anytime you score 50 points and have more than 500 yards of offense, and anytime you can limit a team to about 150 yards of total offense and 7 points, that is just about everything that could have gone right last night really did. Sure, there were some struggles at times. Sure, there were a few penalties here and there, and sure, the game felt, at least to me, a little bit closer than it really did by the end. I mean, again, going into that fourth quarter, I think it was like a 22-point lead. I mean, yeah, the lead felt safe, but obviously you wanted to put up more points than you did. And your defense, besides the one miscue there on the judge card, mistimed play, they nearly pitched a shutout. And you got to be happy with how they did. And then I'm trying to figure out what else to hit on here. Kai Kroger, let's talk about him for a second. Oh, what's wrong with Kai Kroger? Dude's been a shell of himself last season and this season so far. Well, I guess, and no disrespect, I don't know if you watched the game or not last night, but I'm looking at his stats here. He had a 75-yard punt last night, which was it's obvious. It is season long of the year. 4 punts for 53.2 yards. I mean, he was special teams player of the week after the Kentucky game. Unless I'm missing something, he's been good this year. So, and he had the 2-point conversion that he ran in on to get South Carolina up 15-0 in that first quarter. So, I mean, whatever he's doing right now seems to be working. So, he's been pretty solid, I think, for this team. And I think special teams wise, they're doing a good job. Kai's doing well. Alex Herrera did not have to kick a single field goal last night. It was only PATs, and he looked good from that standpoint. I think just overall, I think another thing that we need to talk about here is it was good seeing a lot of guys get involved. I talked about the running game earlier. You got Jawarn Howell, Matthew Fuller, Bradley Dunn, guys like that all in there, and they did very well. And then the receiving game, I mean, you got Connor Cox, tight end for South Carolina, scored a touchdown. Brady Hunt finally got involved. Peyton Mangrum had a catch last night. You're continuing to see Nick Harbor get involved. Eric Rice was third on the team last night in receiving yards with 20 yards on 2 catches with a long of 14. Nearly had a touchdown last night, and he looked very good. I think last night was a really good chance to see what you got with this team. And overall, got to be very impressed with the effort they gave. And it's a nice response after going and losing a real heartbreaker against LSU last week. But now the Gamecocks will head into a very all-important bye week. And I think, and last comment on Kai here, Kai will be an NFL guy. Nobody in college handles snaps as good as he does. I know that sounds easy, but it's not. He doesn't get enough credit for that. Yeah, he's been very good. And, Craig brings up a good point. Kroger was dealing with some personal issues last year. Yeah, that's true. He went through a real, battle internally last year. There's a lot of off-the-field stuff, but now it's all kind of resolved, and you see him performing a lot better so far this year. All right, now let's go ahead and shift the focus to what's next. Carolina's got a bye week this week. They'll practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They did not Shane did say they did not practice tonight, unless I misheard him or something. And then the players will be off Thursday to Saturday, and then everyone will be back in the building on Sunday. And then from a recruiting standpoint, the staff will get on the road, I think Thursday and Friday for sure. And they'll be covering a lot of different states. I think Beamer listed it off. They'll be going to Florida, Georgia, Bama, Virginia, North Carolina, and they will definitely be all over the state of South Carolina as well, going to different schools, different games. And, so a lot going on this week. I think this is a great time for a lot of guys to get healthy. Lenoris, I mean, we'll see how he is in 2 weeks if he does play against Ole Miss. It sounds like he's going to be good to go. They're going to ease him through practice this week from what Beamer said, and not rush anything because, again, there's no game to prepare for this week. And then once they get into Ole Miss prep in about a week and a half, they'll go from there and see how he's doing. And they believe he'll be ready, as well as Jared Brown and Rocket Sanders, potentially, guys like that. So and then you got Ole Miss coming into town. And we're not going to talk too much about the elephant in the room. Obviously, I don't really have to explain myself. Juice Wells. I mean, the name will probably just spark comments galore about how he did South Carolina wrong and stuff. And look, that's a whole nother conversation we can have next week and stuff. We can get all our Juice feelings out next week and how you feel about him. Oh, sorry. Judas Wells. Yes. How could I forget? Judas Wells. I think that game, like, besides the whole Juice Wells factor, look at this game from a football standpoint, not all the off the field storylines with this game and how Wells left the team and stuff and how that went down. I agree, Craig. Hold Ole Miss to 28-30 and we can beat them. Easier said than done, because I'm looking at some of their numbers so far through 4 games. 76 points against Furman, 52 against Middle Tennessee, 40 at Wake Forest, and last night, 52 points against Georgia Southern. And I know the argument is that the fact that they haven't played anyone this year, and you'd be right. I mean, Furman, Middle Tennessee, Georgia Southern, not really tough opponents at all. Wake Forest, I'd even wager to say, is just not a tough opponent anymore. Ever since once Sam Hartman left, that team really hasn't been much of the same. And and with the time, we're going to figure that out tomorrow. That'll be announced tomorrow sometime during the day. So be on the lookout for that. If I had to guess right now, this is without any knowledge of what goes into these decisions or anything. Just my thinking here, it needs to be a primetime game. That I'm one that likes the noon kicks because it's like, okay, I get done from a work standpoint by 7 o'clock or whatever, a little earlier, and I can, kick my feet up, get dinner, watch the night games, and have a good time. But for this type of game, I want it to be a night game. It needs to be a crazy good atmosphere. I mean, last night, I will give South Carolina fans credit. They showed up in droves last week for that game against LSU, and as they should, it's a noon kick, but college game day's there, national TV, all the eyes of college football are on that game. I mean, we saw it reflected in the viewership. And then last night, I wasn't expecting a huge crowd, but I mean, right at the start of the game, and I know people fizzled out as the game went on. That was a packed out place last night. Like, it really was a good crowd right before kickoff. I think I posted a picture of what the crowd looked like on Twitter right as kickoff began. I was genuinely just not shocked because I knew people would show up, but I mean, it's hard to get up for right after a loss, and it's right after a loss, and they're playing Akron. It's not easy to say like, hey, let's go watch South Carolina play Akron. It's not as easy to say that compared to, hey, let's go watch South Carolina play against LSU with College Game Day in town, right? So, but give credit to the fans, give credit to this team. Everyone showed up well last night, and you see the results in the field, and it was very good. And Furman is someone, FU all the time, go Dens. Yeah, look, hey, Furman's someone. But in terms of college football, they're an FCS team. So that's kind of the way I look at it, is not saying they're nobody, but again, compared to Ole Miss, top 10 team in the country, Ole Miss is a pretty darn good team with a pretty darn good quarterback. Jackson Dart, 418 yards against Furman, 377 against Middle Tennessee, 377 again against Wake, and 382 against Georgia Southern. And that's just looking at the quick numbers. I wager to guess. I haven't really watched a ton of Ole Miss yet this year. I've seen some highlights here and there, but I wager to guess Jackson Dart's probably not playing the entire game against these teams so far because it's been blowout galore. And against Carolina, he's going to have to play 4 quarters. Ole Miss also has a game against Kentucky on Saturday, and that is going to be a real interesting one. It's in Oxford. Noon kick, ABC. That's probably one of the other games. Going back to that question earlier about what games I'm going to be watching, I'll probably watch that one since Clemson Stanford isn't until like 7 or 8 p.m., whatever time it is there. It's a night game. And then I'm going to try to watch Bama, Georgia as much as I can. But the Ole Miss Rebels, man, they're a good offense. They won the transfer portal, won in recruiting. They got a good team, and I think it's here's a great point from Blair, who says Jackson. I can't, sometimes like I can't tell if the misspellings are on purpose or not, but like I have a feeling for this one it is. Jackson Dirt hasn't seen our defense yet. Yeah, no, real good point. And look, Kentucky, I don't think Kentucky's really going to cause any issues for Ole Miss, but first real true SEC road game of the year for the Rebels. Look, they've had a great season so far. No one's denying that. But I will say, Carolina, they could present some really nice challenges to go against this Ole Miss offense, and we're going to have to see what happens. And, look, great point here from SC Scout Guy, who continues to just deliver great point after great point. The D-line needs to be in Dart's face the entire game. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know much about this Ole Miss offensive line, but judging by the fact that Dart's been able to throw for as many yards as he has, and they've got a pretty good run game, I'm going to guess that they have a pretty good offensive line too. And we'll talk more about that Ole Miss next week for sure once I watch a little bit more tape on them and stuff. But I think this is going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a 4-quarter battle, going to come down the wire, just like the LSU game did. And if you go to my my season predictions, this was the game I had the hardest time picking. I think I think I originally I was gonna originally pick Carolina to beat Ole Miss because I'm like, I just had that feeling, man. Juice Wells game, um, really could be a primetime game for Carolina. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick South Carolina to beat Ole Miss. And then I was like, you know what? This Ole Miss offense is really freaking good. And I had to pick Ole Miss for right now. Not saying that won't change next week, but we're going to have to see. And little interruption to this Ole Miss talk. Panthers. Whoa. I have not watched holy, I'm looking at my phone here. 33-7. So maybe Bryce Young was the problem because Andy Dalton, the red rifle, get the stat line, y'all, and then we're going to close out here pretty soon. 25 of 36 passing, 322 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Oh, yeah, and by the way, on the ground, the Panthers have 21 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown. So I know it's the Raiders, but man. Xavier Leggett, 2 catches, 42 yards, 21 yards per catch is the average. And Deontay Johnson, former fantasy pick of mine eons ago with the Steelers, 14 targets today, 8 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Chuba Hubbard, 5 targets, 5 catches, 55 yards, a touchdown. Yeah, that's it's not bad. It's pretty good. I haven't been able to watch the Panthers today, but look, I feel bad for any of the Panthers fans out there. But today, man, I know it's the Raiders, but that's a pretty good win for them right there. Assuming they hold on, there's 13 minutes left, but I would imagine they're able to hold on. And I know we're getting some questions here about the spread on that game. I'm looking on CBS Sports. There's no spread right now for that game. I believe we'll get that probably this time next week, to be honest. And I would imagine Ole Miss is going to be favored. I mean, it's no disrespect to Carolina or anything, or saying I'm a hater or anything. I just think Ole Miss is going to be coming in as the favorite. I'd say they're probably going to be, if it were me, I'd say like 4.5, 5.5 point favorite. But because it's, Vegas and stuff, I mean, honestly, it's probably going to be closer to 8 to 10. I think Carolina's going to get disrespected, and it wouldn't shock me if they pull off the upset by any means, because it's that type of game where the adrenaline can really serve you well, and the energy and having the home crowd. We don't know how Ole Miss is really going to look in front of that type of environment. And if you guys are watching and you guys go to games, you better be there next Saturday when the Ole Miss Rebels come to town, because it is going to be a really, really hopefully ruckus environment, and we'll have to see. I think I think we covered all our bases. If there's anything else you guys want to talk about, go ahead and drop a comment for the next few minutes. But otherwise, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of GC Live Sunday Reset. Appreciate you guys hopping on and tuning in. Had a really good time talking about a win compared to a loss. Last week was not as fun talking about Carolina losing. And, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Things just are better when teams are winning. And, that's not to say it's not, cool to talk about a loss or anything. But again, wins are much better. And Sheriff says, Jack, before you sign off, give us oh man, you put me on the spot. Give us a Clemson, South Carolina score this year. Oh man. All right. I do have Carolina winning that game this year. That goes back to my season predictions, which I've mentioned a few times now. I do have Carolina winning that game, despite how good Clemson has been looking lately. It's against App State and NC State. Like, woohoo. You're playing Stanford next week. I fully expect Clemson to blow out Stanford. Although Stanford did look pretty good against Syracuse, winning on a last-second field goal. Score prediction. As I see it right now, it's going to be another high-scoring game, I think, like 2 years ago. I think there's going to be much more offense than last year. I will say Carolina wins that game. Let's go with like 35 to 31 or something like that. I think that's probably about where I see it. It's going to be pretty cool. We got a few more comments here. The Ole Miss game has to be in prime time. They would be idiots not to make it a night game. Absolutely. I think it's either going to be like a 3:30 game or 7:30 game. I think it really just depends on what window they want like ABC. It's going to definitely be on ABC, I think. It definitely would depend on what window this game would be for a nationally televised audience. But I think you really can't go wrong with a night game. I just think that's the way they got to go. I appreciate William. Great show. Appreciate it as always for you tuning in. And then I think this is probably the last question I get to, unless there's anyone else that wants to comment anything in the next 30 seconds or so. Yeah, do you think Lenoris will be rusty after taking 2 weeks? Oh, God, this next question. I would say, I don't know yet. It's too early to say. I think it does stink that he didn't get any reps in there last night. But again, I think it's a sacrifice you have to make to keep him healthy. And I think there's probably going to be a little bit at first, but I think once you get the first run, a big throw out of the way, he'll be fine and good to go. Sheriff says blondes or brunettes? Brunettes. My girlfriend's a brunette, so easy answer for me. Though you really can't go wrong either way. And Michael Lynn says we will have to score a lot, but our defense will keep us in the game. Absolutely. That's the type of game it's going to be. It's going to be a dogfight. Robbie Ashford said that last night. I fully agree. It's going to be a crazy game, and Carolina has to bring their best because that's what it takes to beat an Ole Miss. And sometimes you also need things to go your way. And if that's the case, the home crowd's in your favor. You never know. So that is going to do it for this week's episode of I was about to say Jack's Mailbag. Oh my gosh. GC Live Sunday Reset with myself. And yeah, if you have a question you want to ask me on Jack's Mailbag, I posted the thread on the Insiders Forum. So fire away with any questions you have for me. I would love to answer as many as I can, like I do here on this show. So that's what you guys should be doing right after this. After you get off, go to the Insiders Forum, comment any questions you have for me. And so be sure to stay locked into GamecockCentral.com for all coverage and updates. No press conferences this week, but there will be plenty of stories to come from the Akron game, and looking forward to the bye week and then Ole Miss right here before you know it. So we will be going live again next Sunday for Sunday Reset, and give you all a little hint. We are going to, or I will probably be recapping my first trip to Clemson for a game. Because keep in mind, I've been to Clemson before covering Carolina baseball, and I went last year for South Carolina basketball, against Clemson. But I've never been to a football game, even as a fan. I've never been in general to a Clemson football game. So I will definitely be recapping my experience going there. So it should be a good time, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, appreciate you guys hopping on, and I will see you guys again next Sunday night. Take care, guys.